Quinnipiac University released a poll this week where they did hypothetical matchups for the general election, and oh boy, do we have some good news for you. So Bernie Sanders beats all of the Republican contenders. All of them. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he actually may have done this once before, earlier on, or maybe he was still losing to one of them. I can't remember exactly. I know we did a similar story a month or so ago, or maybe a little longer, but now the numbers seem more pronounced. There's one person where it's really close, shockingly, but with everybody else, he's kind of kicking their ass. So let me give you some specifics. The close one, Marco Rubio. Randomly, the establishment puppet with $1 zillion coming out of his anus. That guy somehow is almost tied with Bernie, but Bernie still edges him out. He gets 44%, Rubio gets 43%. Bernie beats Ben Carson by 6 points. He beats Ted Cruz by 10 points. And Ted Cruz, for the record here, is not doing poorly on the Republican side. He's in like 3rd or 4th in most polls. And he beats Trump, who's dominating the rest of the Republican field, by 8 points. So that's good news. That's really good news. And my favorite part is this, quote, 59% of voters also say that Sanders is honest and trustworthy, placing him well above former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, his chief rival for the Democratic nomination, and above all top Republican candidates tested in the poll. Now, he's been able to do this despite being handicapped when it comes to big money, and also despite getting much less coverage in the media. So I pose this very simple question to you. What do you think this would look like? What do you think the numbers would be if Bernie indeed did get the coverage that he deserved? Because when you talk about a guy like Donald Trump, they're really, going nuts with all different stories on him. Some of them neutral, some of them against, some of them for. But either way, he's dominating the coverage. Bernie Sanders is getting nowhere near that. Imagine for a second we switched and we had Bernie getting as much coverage as Donald and Donald getting as much coverage as Bernie. What would it look like? I honestly believe Bernie would be crushing across the board if he got that kind of media coverage. But he doesn't, which again brings me back to my handicaps, where he doesn't have nearly as much big money as the rest of these guys, especially Hillary Clinton, and the media is not covering him nearly enough. But I have to end the story on a depressing note, lest you get too comfortable here. Nationally, Bernie is being destroyed by one person. Hillary Clinton. Now, again, when you get into specifics and you ask particular questions about is this person trustworthy, honest, so on and so forth, Bernie Sanders is better. Even when you get into favorable versus unfavorable, Bernie Sanders does better in some polls, and he's still beating her in some polls in specific places like Iowa, New Hampshire, and possibly some others. But overall, nationally, he's getting owned. So Bernie has 30.4% to Hillary's 57.8%. This is according to the average from Real Clear Politics, who does a fantastic job tracking all this stuff. So everybody who's a Bernie fan, understand that you're still behind for the reasons I pointed out before, the media not covering enough and being behind in the big money primary, which he took a principled stand against that and said, I'm not going to take it even if they want to give it to me, which they wouldn't want to anyway because he's not going to sell out to them and represent them. But what this means is, like every time we talk about Bernie, I feel compelled to bring this up. It just means that you got to work that much harder. It's not going to come easy. It's not going to come easy. You might understand that Bernie Sanders on the issues themselves, he's with you, and he's fighting alongside you, and he wants to raise the minimum wage, he wants to end the nonsensical wars, he wants to fight corruption and attempt to get money out of politics, he wants to regulate Wall Street, he wants to bring back unionization and help the middle class and do all those things. So you might get that he's with you on those things, But that doesn't mean that the average person in America understands that. In fact, they most likely don't. So then it's on you, along with him, to try to get the message out there. And this is why Bernie has said repeatedly, even if I get elected, it's not time for everybody who was an activist to just pack it up and go home. No, I'm going to need your continued support, and I'm going to need the people to help fight back against this system, because the system is the problem, and no one man can do it. Real change does happen from the grassroots. It happens from the bottom up. And, you might like me, you might pick me, and I'll do my best for you, but you got to be there as well. And you have to do your part and go out and tell other people and stay aggressive and stay on message. And then people keep asking me, and I keep telling them the same thing. Is it possible that Bernie Sanders wins? Does he have a shot? The answer to that is yes. It's not likely. It's not probable. But is there a possibility? Is there a chance? Absolutely. I mean, people used to say about a black guy named Barack Hussein Obama when he was way behind Hillary Clinton, oh, this guy's got no shot. Who are you kidding? Don't be stupid. And then what ended up happening? He came up from her left and beat her. It's the same thing in terms of poll numbers when it comes to Bernie, too. For those of you who don't know, Bernie is actually doing better at this point in this primary than Obama was doing against Hillary at this point in their primary. That's something to think about. But don't get lazy, don't get lackadaisical, keep the pedal to the metal, and keep working hard.